What's up, Hans family, and welcome to my Wonderland series. As you may have guessed, this series is going to be turning some of our favorite Wonderland characters into creepy monsters. Alice being the star of the show, I wanted to turn her into a mutated, infected monster where she drank that potion and just turned boils and shit all over her face. This is in part inspired by these two amazing artists that molded this mask, Damian Zimmerman and Andrew Freeman. Check them out and please subscribe to be notified when my other videos go live. Let's do it. We're going to start out with Model Magic, which is what I used in my last tutorial. It's very inexpensive and easy to use. So I'm going to use this to create our molds. Basically just take a little bit of the clay, roll it up into a ball, and then use either your finger or the end of a makeup brush handle to create our little circles inside. Basically you're just creating bowls inside of these little balls of clay. Make sure that they're nice and smooth too, because this is again what we are going to be pouring the gelatin inside of. I made a ton of different shapes and sizes just so that we had a lot of these to play with. I let mine dry for a couple hours and then powder them with some translucent powder so the gelatin doesn't stick to our molds. I use 3-day gel from Mayron, but you can always mix your own gelatin yourself, and you want to microwave it for a few seconds at a time while stirring it so that it's nice and liquidy. Just be careful because this will be very hot. Then, just pour it into your molds nice and deep like. And after a few hours of drying, this can even be overnight, I want to powder the top just so that it's not sticky and start pulling off the clay around the gelatin. Since this is kind of a foam texture, it's super easy to kind of maneuver and play with, so it's very easy to pull off of the gelatin. Powder that as well, again, so it's not sticky. Lots of powdering in this. And there you go. An array of fleshy bubbles, flat fleshy bubbles. They're like gumdrops without the coloring. Onto the makeup. I started out with some cream makeup, which is from Krylon, their Dermacolor in their lightest shade. You can use any foundation, but I really wanted a very cream-based one. Just put this on your face in downward motions. This is just to set a base to our skin. And I'm still finding glitter on my desk from my goddamn glitter tutorial. Never again! For a light contour, I went in with NYX's Taupe HD blush, which is nice and cool toned for us pale beauties. And most of this was covered up anyways from the boils, but you still want to do it just in case some still shows through. Now for the spirit gum, I am just applying this with my finger, mainly keeping it around my mouth because I drank the potion, obviously with my mouth, so that's where the boils and mutations started to spread from there, because I want it to look like an infection. And you don't have to tap this to make it sticky, just let it dry a little bit. Now that this started to get tacky, I put down some of our gel pieces. Since the mutation did start from our mouth, most of the larger bumps would be near the mouth and start getting smaller as it's spreading along our face. Cluster them up real nice and tight. Really nice and tight. Just to make it look as bumpy as can be. I even started overlapping them a little bit as well. Some of my spirit gum did start to dry before I could put the gel down, and so my suggestion would be to work in a little bit of smaller patches than I did, because I did have to go back and start adding in more spirit gum. If you don't have spirit gum, you can just melt some more gel and use that to adhere it to your face. One thing that I thought was missing for this was that it didn't look like one cohesive piece. It didn't look like it was really my skin. So I did heat up a little bit more of that gel and I put it in between the bumps where my skin was showing. And I also put it on top of my lips to bring my lips more into the look. Gel is great because as it starts to dry, you can layer it, but just make sure to watch out because I accidentally let some of it drip and then dry, which doesn't look very realistic, you know what I'm saying? We gotta set that shit again, so I'm using Air Spun, which I'm sure you guys all know from Patrick Star. It is a very awesome translucent powder, so I just want to put this all over. You wouldn't have to do this, but we are putting foundation over this, so I decided to set it. If you wanted this to look a little bit more clear and translucent, then you obviously wouldn't set it or use foundation. Going back in with said foundation that we used on our face earlier, I want to mainly focus on the tops of all of these bumps. So if you want to look kind of weird, maybe just leave it at that. Eee, all creepy. To add just a little bit of light makeup to Alice's face before she started mutating, I put a little bit of a nude shadow all over my lid, and then a light brown eyeshadow all over the crease and underneath my eyes as well, darkening it as I go. I also gave her just a nice pop of winged liner, and then popping on some lashes. These are Risque by Coco Lashes. FX Cosplay sent me this bruise wheel from Mayron, so we're going to be using that mainly for this part of the look, especially going in starting with the red. You want to go in between all of our bumps just to pretty much show that that's where our skin is pulling upwards into these bumps and it's really irritated. I'm also blending it onto the circles themselves, and it's mixing with the foundation to turn into a nice pink color, which is perfect. That's why using cream paints for this is awesome, because you can blend them together to really get a realistic feel. Basically, the deeper a crevice would go in your skin, the darker red it would be. So now, jumping into this really, really dark red, I'm going to go in to where I really want some of the shadows from these deeper, larger boils to be. You don't need to do this around every single one, because not everyone would have this dark of red, irritated skin around it. But it just helps to really accentuate some of these larger pieces. You can even use your finger to tap out the color to blend it a little more. You can see I'm using a pencil liner brush this entire time, and it blended out just fine with that. For some veins, to make this look even more infected, I'm using this same liner brush from Sigma, just to pretty much use the lightest red color to start drawing out some veins. And when drawing these out, you can look at a reference picture if you'd like, and you want to tap the color a little bit so that it's nice and light and looks like it's underneath your skin. You want to have the most pigment on your brush at the start of the vein, and as you pull the vein upwards as you draw it, you want that pigment to be lighter and lighter, because as veins stretch out, they get very light. I drew these veins from pretty much every part of the mutations that I could, and then connected it to one side under my eye, adding a little bit of red there. I also forgot to, fill in my eyebrows, so I did that with just a little bit of blonde dip brow from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I don't know about you guys, but I would probably be pretty sad if I started mutating, so I may cry off some of my makeup, so I did that using a little bit of black eyeshadow and water mixed. Since I wasn't that quick with my gelatin and it did dry into a few drips, I wanted to try to eliminate that with some scissors, but be very careful if you do this. I popped in a white contact, and for my costume, I got all of this stuff from Amazon. I did cut up the collar, that's why it looks a little fucked up right here, because I didn't pin it perfectly to my dress, but you can do all of this for a total of $74. You may even have a couple of these items just in your closet already, so I hope you guys liked that Monster Alice tutorial. If you did, let me know what you think down below. Please subscribe so you can see all of the other Wonderland tutorials that are coming, and I will just see you guys in the next video. Bye! Oh yeah, I'm all done. I'm gonna go home and rip this shit off my face. Rip it off. Whoa! I almost just fell. Oh, got him!